writer Jeremy Fowler has done a deep dive into Brown's downward spiral. Fowler's report includes conversations with former teammates, associates, and family members. And we say hello now to Jeremy, who joins us in the studio alongside Ryan Clark, who, of course, was a former teammate of Brown's in Pittsburgh. Let's start with one of your most revealing conversations, I think, which happened with Antonio's father, Eddie Brown. And here is the quote from the article. If everybody is coming at you with so many different directions, requiring so much of you, there comes a point where you can't take a deep breath and you lash out. You're overwhelmed and don't know how to respond. We've been talking about that since he's been home. I guess the question would be, Jeremy, how did Brown's years in Pittsburgh and those other stops he made sort of get him to where he is today?
Well, Wendy, there's a common theme with Antonio Brown that really dates back to his high school days. You get him on a field, and he's great. But then off the field, you deal with the mood swings. There's some lack of respect, and coaches have to decide, do they want to deal with this or not? And they usually do because he's a great player. But a lot of players and ex-teammates described it as flipping a switch. He'll be good one moment and then flip the next. There was one instance in my reporting at Central Michigan with an assistant coach. He ripped up a guy's office. He just tore up an office because he was mad, really for no particular reason they didn't even know. And so in Pittsburgh and RC, you probably understand this, there was a protective cocoon a little bit for AB, they would get phone calls about where he was or did he have any sort of legal issues. But, they sort of managed all that. They limited the confrontations and they got him to the field on Sundays. So in some ways, the best way to manage him was to not manage him at all and let him play.
You read, I'm sure, Jeremy, or you saw some of Jeremy's reporting, and then from your own experience. So what's your reaction to those things that got us here, Ryan?
Well, I think most of it is I'm sad. It became a point because I was so tied into the story because I was kind of the first to be on the other side of it with Antonio, where I thought people should think I would take a victory lap. But when you've been around somebody and you've experienced them as a person, you want to see positive things happen for him. And it was even getting to a point for me where I was like, I think something's wrong with him. I would love for him to get an opportunity to sit down, talk to people, and get some help. But when you look at what went on in Pittsburgh and how long they were able to keep things under wraps, how long they were able to keep getting him to the field, it really speaks to that organization and the way that they protect players, the way that they protect their opportunities to win games, but also help their people, because now Antonio Brown, without that type of guidance, without that type of help, is starting to show the world some of those small cracks and demons he's dealt with for a long time.
Honestly, it's almost unbelievable to me how Pittsburgh was able to keep it in check as long as they were. It's just incredible. But the question everybody asks now, and I think it's fair, especially when Antonio Brown puts it out there that he'd like to return and all. What is his future? I mean, you can't predict the future, but what are the expectations for what's next?
Yeah, well, for now, he's been working on himself. When I first talked to his dad, Eddie Brown, he said that AB had told him he had undergone some therapy. He didn't know the nature of it yet, but they were working through some things, and they thought they were in a positive direction. He said he'd even curbed his social media usage for a little bit, which, worked for a couple weeks, but then now you see it coming back up, and it's hard to know. Even the people who are close to him and love him, they don't really know what to expect right now. But I did speak with agent Drew Rosenhaus as part of the story. He said that at least 3 teams are very interested in signing him once the investigation into the sexual assault is done. But we still don't know when that is, and that's going to drag into next year.
Yeah. What it has.
So in dealing with Antonio, when issues would pop up, I would always speak about how hard he worked, how important it was for him to be great. And whatever that was that fueled him, I always thought it was fame. I thought it was attention. I thought it was money. But I had no issue with it because it made him the great player that he was and that he is today. But now you look at it, that fame is gone, right? That attention is gone. Getting an opportunity to play a game that you can excel at, all that's gone away along with paychecks. And when you keep those things away from a player long enough, he can fight some of those things for a while. But when 2 weeks go by, when 3 weeks go by, when you send a tweet to Robert Kraft that's not met with any grace, that's not met with an opportunity to play football, eventually you stop fighting those demons and you stop fighting the things that make you want to lash out, and you allow those to take control. And I think for Antonio Brown, he needs to get in a place to where he finds a passion about something else other than football and fame right now.
It's 95 days since the Patriots released him. And, I mean, it's likely to be 95 more, Jeremy, before we know anything.
It's wild. And somebody who worked with him for a couple of years told me, to your point, that sporadic nature brought out the best and the worst in him, and we're seeing that now.
Isn't that so often the case, though, that our biggest strength, our biggest weakness as well? I mean, I think that's true for a lot of people. If he were to get some of these issues, these demons figured out, And that's a big if, but you want to see someone make progress. Would you be able to accept him as a teammate?
Absolutely, absolutely, because I think we all have and need opportunities to change, opportunities to grow, and also chances to show people that we can be different. And I would love to see Antonio Brown get another chance because I love ball, and I love people who play it the way that he does. But more than anything, you want to see him get his life together and get an opportunity to be successful going forward as a person, not even just as a player.
No question. Jeremy, thank you.
Thank you.
Great. It was a great article. You can see it on ESPN.com. Stay tuned for what twas the day before Christmas when all through the league, not a team was too cozy, not even the first seed. The rankings were shifting and hopes were dwindling out, but the players are still in this and Super Bowl dreaming about. But before we get too nervous, Jeff, a story must be told. The playoffs are upon us, but looking back at this season never gets old. Shall we?
We shall.